Well, hello everybody and welcome to another episode, and today I'm going to show you three beautiful mechanical SLRs. They're all Exakta SLRs and they were lent to me by viewers Peter and Jenny Snow, so many thanks for the loan. They're all masterpieces from the age of engineering, and if you're looking for a manual film camera, then these mechanical jewels are well worth considering for a number of reasons which I'll go into, not the least of which is cost. These are not particularly expensive cameras. They're all fully manual and they have no electronics at all. They're entirely mechanical, just springs, gears, levers, cams and other mechanical contrivances, so they really are little miracles, each one of them. The oldest is the Kine Exacta. That's this one. That's from 1938. We've also got the what's this one called? The Varex, the Exakta Varex, and that dates from 1958. And we've also got the Exakta VX 1000, which dates from 1969. Now, these were high tech in their day. Certainly this one, the Kine Exacta, this was cutting edge in its day. You know, it was as high tech in 1938 as, I don't know, a compound steam engine or a very, very accurate mechanical watch or an HMV gramophone, for example. At the time, this was as high-tech as it got. So, at that time, I guess the main competitors for these cameras were the Leica cameras and also the Contax cameras, certainly referring to this oldest one here. And they seem to have a comparable standard of engineering. The standard of engineering in these cameras is very, very high indeed. And, you know, it's at least as nice as that that you find on the Leica cameras. I can't really see very much difference in it. So at that time, Leica and Contax were the main competitors, but the Leica and Contax cameras are rangefinders, and the Exaktas, even the very oldest one from 1938, are all SLR cameras. So Exaktas give exact precision of view. When you look through a rangefinder camera like the Leica, you get an approximation of what will appear on the final image. It's a very close approximation for sure, but it's not exact, whereas with the Exaktas, you look directly through the lens, as in every other SLR, so you see exactly what will appear on your final image. Hence the name, Exakta. You know, you're going to see exactly what you see through the lens. The Exaktas are certainly much cheaper than both the Leicas and the Contax cameras. You can find Exakta bodies, any of these models, from the oldest to the latest. You can find bodies for around £50 to £75, and you can find bodies and lenses for around about £75 to £150. Most of the time that lens will be a CZJ Tessar 2.8 50mm. But you can get lucky. I've seen them with CZJ Biotar f2 lenses on them for around about £150, whereas a Leica body, one of these Leica bodies, will cost around £150 to £200, with a lens £200 to £400. And a Contax camera like this Kiev copy, if you want an original Contax in good working order, well, they're quite rare. There weren't that many made, as I understand it, and that's likely to run into several thousands of pounds. So these Exaktas really do make sense from the cost point of view. Now, I have to say the Leicas are simpler to use. They are more pared down. They've got less features and they just have an air of simplicity about them. They've got everything you need, but nothing you don't need. They're really, really pared down, and I appreciate personally that simple approach. They're a little easier to use. Not that the Exaktas are complex as such. They just need familiarity. Like any other machine, you have to get used to them, you have to get to know them, but once you're familiar with them, they are very straightforward, just like any other SLR, any other manual film camera. The complexity, I think, comes from the fact that they've got more features. There are things like film cutters and various other features which I'll go into when we look at them. They're quite heavy cameras too. If I pick one up, they are heavier than the Leica. Not too much, but they are just a little bit heavier. So if you have any problems carrying things, any back problems or neck problems, that is a consideration. So let's have a look now at the earliest one. This is the Kine Exacta, so let's check it out. And there you can see straight away the unique and distinctive trapezoidal design. I think that's the right word, trapezoid. It certainly sounds right anyway, and that's half the battle. But you can see the shape there, and that of course is to accommodate the mirror and all the other bits that SLR cameras have that rangefinder cameras don't. It's got a real mechanical feel. This was a very high precision instrument in 1938, and it was the highest of high tech. You really couldn't get higher tech than this camera in its day. This is the XT4 or A7R3 of its time. It's got a very wide range of shutter speeds from 1/12 of a second to 1,000th of a second. And just look at the mechanical nature of this top deck. There's the lever wind mechanism. That's very advanced for the time. Unusually, it's placed on the left, and it may be that that is to allow for fitment to a microscope or other equipment. But what a beautiful top deck that is. It reminds me of, you know, if you think of the technology of the time, it reminds me of a Bugatti Racer or something like that, a real mechanical approach. And you can see there that it's got the Leica style cloth shutter. I don't know if it's exactly the same design or if any royalties were necessary or indeed paid, but that is the shutter mechanism that it has, and we'll fire it. I tell you what, let's open the viewfinder first. And there we go. And there is that lovely shutter sound. It's actually fairly quiet for an SLR. Most SLRs are a little bit louder than that, but this is a pretty quiet one. And there's the ground glass screen that you look down on. This one does need a service. It's actually just been bought by Peter. He's not had it very long, and he takes very good care of his cameras, and he's going to service this one. It's entirely usable as it is, but you know, it'd be nicer after a clean. It also has a frame viewfinder that you can look directly through with your eye. So what a lovely old piece of kit that is. An absolutely beautiful thing. The other cameras are broadly similar. I'll show you. So there is the Varex, and you can see it's got a very similar shape. The finder is different, but the top deck is pretty similar. But with this camera, you just look through the viewfinder here, and with this camera you can see through the lens between shots. So on the older camera, on the Kine Exacta, you have to wind on before you can see through the lens, much like a lot of the older SLRs, just like the Zenith 3M, in fact, that has the same approach. And I'll show you the latest camera also. This is the VX 1000. There's the top deck, and apart from a change in colour and various other markings, you can see that it's essentially the same thing. Again, this has a finder that you look through rather than down on. It's not a ground glass screen. So a very broadly similar approach in all three cameras. In use, well, there's no doubt that these are a little heavy, and I'll mention that as I've had back problems recently, so for me they were a little bit on the heavy side, so that might be a consideration. And it did take a little time for me to get used to them. Actually, I did have to just stop and pause and think, okay, how do I actually approach these? And they do feel a bit different to many other cameras that I've used. There's no doubt about it. They do have a slightly different approach to photography, and for me it wasn't quite a plug and play experience. So as I say, I was very careful to take my time to familiarize myself with them, but it was worth the trouble, because once I was familiar with them and with the Exakta system, these are beautiful cameras, absolutely lovely mechanical jewels. They've got a real feeling of quality. They feel like high precision instruments, more so than a Leica, I think, which hides its high precision behind simplicity. These are like a scientific instrument, a little bit like a microscope or something of that sort. If a Leica's a Morris Minor, simple, reliable, very well made, these are more like, I don't know, a Borgward or a Riley. They're a bit more complex, and they've got a few more quirks. Ultimately, they do the same job, but in a rather different way. Now, as well as the cameras, Peter and Jenny also sent me lots of literature to do with Exakta cameras. We've got the instruction manual from Whitby's Camera Shop in Reading and Aldershot. Cameras for colour, how about that? So a very detailed instruction manual for the VX 1000, covering all the important functions. And I must say I approve of the yellow theme. I think that's quite cool, and it makes it very visible and very clear. There's a brochure of Exakta accessories as well. I think this one, looking at this one, probably this one dates from around the late 60s sometime. And this is a wonderful thing. What have we got here? Close-up adapters, bayonet adapter rings and extension tubes, bellows attachments, auto couple extension releases, copying stand, front bayonet adapter ring with outer bayonet lens magnifier. My goodness, there are all sorts of accessories available for these cameras. And there, in fact, is the camera being used with a microscope. So this really was a full and complete system. And we've also got a brochure here of accessories for the VX 1000. Again, various accessories to allow all manners of different photography, medical photography, general photography, microscopy photography, if that's the right phrase, close-up adapters. A very, very full and complete system that really could compete with any other camera system without any problem at all. So, which did I prefer? Well, I love the older camera here, the Kine Exacta. It's a beautiful thing and very, very high tech in its day. I really like that camera. The Varex is really nice. It's got some modern improvements, a better viewfinder, or at least a viewfinder that I prefer. You can, by the way, take off these viewfinders on these cameras and actually attach a ground glass screen. And all manner of different finders as well, so they're very adaptable, very versatile, and as I say, it's a very full system. The VX1000 feels much more modern. It's, I don't know, it just has a modern feel when compared to this very early camera here, but I must admit, I think I preferred the early camera just because it was really high-tech in its day. Really lovely. Compared to the Leicas, as I say, they're more complex, and right, I've got to be honest, I think I prefer to use the Leicas just because they're simpler. Maybe just because I'm more familiar with them, I don't know, but I do love simplicity and I do love small size, and these Leicas cannot be beat in the mechanical camera, manual camera world for their very small size. You can close up the lens and put them in a pocket, which it would have to be a big pocket, but you can put them in a pocket, which you can't really do with the Exaktas. So I think for those reasons, for that reason, I do prefer the Leicas personally, but these are actually more able in themselves. They're more able cameras. I mentioned the film cutter. That is here at the bottom. If you pull out this pin, look, I'll show you here, pull out this pin and it will cut the film, actually slice it. So all you do is pull that out, boink, like that, and your film is cut. And if you're doing, for example, medical photography, if you were a doctor at that time and you wanted to take just a few frames of I don't know, maybe a microscope slide or a condition in somebody's body or something, then you can do that. And they really are very versatile. They've got more abilities in themselves. I think for the Leica system, well, it certainly doesn't have a film cutter built in, but you'd have to get more add-ons to add the same functionality that these have got straight out of the box. But, you know, that's just my personal preference. I'm a Leica guy. I grew up on Leica style cameras, not actually Leica cameras, but Leica copies. And I know that system inside out. I've been using it since I was 13, 14 years old. However, if you're looking for a manual film camera, do consider these. These are very, very high precision cameras. They're extremely well made, at least as well made as a Leica as far as I can see, or indeed a Nikon or any other quality camera that you care to mention. And they have the advantage of being cheap. These, I think, they're not the cheapest SLRs you can buy, for sure. You can buy a modern or modernish, 90s Canon SLR with autofocus and auto everything for, gosh, 20, 30 pounds with a lens. So they're not the cheapest SLRs, but they are probably, as far as I've been able to tell, the cheapest high precision cameras that you can buy, the cheapest professional level cameras that you can buy, the cheapest cameras that compete with Leicas for standard of engineering, a standard of quality that you can buy. If you buy a good one, it will last you a long time. I'll just go over those rough price guides again. So bodies for one of these, just a body from from 1938 to 1969. Any of the models, as far as I can tell, go for around £75 to £100. Cameras with a lens go for around £75 to £150 or thereabouts. So these really are very, very affordable precision cameras. And if you're looking for a manual film camera, do consider them. They are fantastic. So I guess that's it from me for another week. many thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like, subscribe and ring the bell before you go, please. And if you like the content on this channel, please do consider becoming a patron. You can support the channel from as little as $1 per week over at patreon.com/Zenography. And it's through the patrons that really this channel can do what it can do, and the more patrons we have, the more we can do, the more cameras I can bring you, and the wider I can take the channel. So many thanks for watching, everybody, and I will see you next time for some more Zenography.